And we're live. Good evening and welcome to the first layer. That guy over there. Yeah, that guy. That's
That's me.
Brian. My
And
good
that
friend
guy
Brian
over
Baker.
there, Richard Cleveland. Haha.
Yeah.
I got the directions right.
Yay. Okay. So tonight I'm going old school.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that mic. I tried to set up the fuzzy, but the fuzzy's not working, so we're going lav.
All right. Sorry, I just finished my supper and I haven't had anything to drink. But let's get going.
I forgot to eat today, so wasn't no fun.
Did you not eat when you got home?
No, I just drank a bunch of these protein shakes. Oh no, I did go for a burger. I got a burger.
Okay, good. All right, so who do we got to say hi to? One Raz, Kevin Conrad, Jason Peters, 3D Print Viking, Alteracious, Robert Marvin, Aura Noodle, Jared Armstrong, and I think we got everybody. Okay.
I think so. Yeah, it's a quiet start. That's what happens when we announce it like a day and a half beforehand.
Yeah.
So,
you know, normally we do this on a Saturday night, but
such is the way.
yeah.
We got busy. Saturdays are not an easy thing to do.
No, they're not.
Do we even have an intro?
There we go. We do, but we still have our old intro, not the new one.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
yeah, we
then.
still have the old intro. We don't have the new one. I was getting a little echo in my headphones of me talking, so it was throwing me off. It was just very bizarre.
I hate that sensation.
Don't you hate when you get echo in your brain? Tonight, what is tonight? Tonight is call or ask for help. We can't use call for help because that's trademarked and copyrighted.
When did that last air? G4 Tech TV? Come on.
Yeah, in Canada. That's when it last aired.
Yeah.
Hey, there's Ken Strock, Joseph Jolly, Pirate Corey, Mark Hart, Richard Taylor, Morgan Pierce. Wow, we got lots of people tonight. Okay, so it's Friday night. I hope everybody's got a drink because I don't. Wah.
Oh.
I need to get that sound effects board going so that, you know, we can use the applause and all that other kind of stuff.
I'm sure we don't need it.
Yeah. Yes, we do. So tonight is Ask for Help. We've got some questions in our email, and I'm going to read them off in just a little bit. But Brian and I want to talk to you guys quickly about some initiatives that we've been talking about going forward. And one of those things, and we want to know what you guys as a community will feel about this, is we're thinking about starting back up the Patreon again. But when we do these Ask for Helps, or when we do a specific topic on our YouTube channel, when we do we present our other content, and we know that there's a lot longer that we can go, and there's things that we can add into that. Would you guys like to see that on our Patreon, or would you just like us to do that as a follow-up episode? Please put it in the chat tonight if you'd like us to go back to Patreon and start using Patreon. We'll only have 3 levels in Patreon, that's it, and we'll try and give you guys some extra stuff if that's what you want to see. If not, then we'll just make content for YouTube and keep going, because we hit 13,000 this week, just yesterday. 13,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. But 76% of you that watch this show still do not subscribe. I don't know why. Brian, what do you want to say about Patreon?
Well, I've been looking into Patreon lately. The challenge when we're producing content right now is that we are bringing a lot of out-of-pocket expenses, shall we say, and I'm a frivolous spender kind of guy too, but I do have my limits. And there's a lot of push to request to review a lot of different products. Now, the actual benefit to the main channel isn't always there, but if there is something neat, we're looking at different funding methods to actually bring that hardware to you guys, and we're looking at different concepts, like, if we review something, maybe give it away to Patreon viewers, something like that, but never to take away content from the main channel, because
that's right.
I'm not donating $10 a month to the channel, so.
It keeps
Yeah.
things going. Yes. So
Yes,
if you
it
guys would like
helps.
to see
Yeah.
that, if you want us to go back to Patreon and do some stuff, we're only going to have 3 levels, like I think $1, $5, and $10. And then we can move forward on that. If that's what you guys want to see, we'll do something. If not, we'll just keep everything right here. So let's start getting to the questions, because this is Ask for Help. And the first question I see right now is from Pirate Corey. He says, when I add the BLTouch in it, it says it uses 81% and 76% of dynamic RAM. Do I cut this down, or how do I cut this down?
Well, I guess the first question is, why do you want to cut it down? Because that memory space is designed to be used. Now, if you're in the
Yes.
90%, I have seen issues occur, and in some of the earlier betas of Marlin, I saw some issues. But these days, most of my machines are running at 86% usage, nice and happy. But the biggest areas I know of to reduce memory usage was things like getting rid of the filament runout sensor, which I don't recommend. Getting rid of the boot screen is one of the easiest ones. Just by turning off show boot screen, that one frees up a whole bunch of memory, because that's just pixel data sitting in the printer. Otherwise, you have to start looking through your features and see if you can trim back items such as the number of grid points, if you're extrapolating beyond grid, and you're going to find that you're not going to save a lot. So if you're at 81%, I'd say that's a good place to leave it at.
I would agree with you. I think that's just fine. You'll have more than enough room to store that data from the probing of the BLTouch, and it'll have enough space to buffer in what it's taking from the card. So I think you should be just fine on that. You can slim the menus down on the boot screen. Yes, you can certainly do that.
Yeah,
It's not necessary that you do that, though.
I honestly, the biggest way to save memory is to get rid of the screen altogether, which again I don't recommend. But if you're running Octoprint all the time and you don't need an LCD and you don't have a filament runout sensor, it'll knock out a fair amount of memory by not using a 12864 LCD. But bearing that in mind, you get a better direct communication with the processor versus any other kind of LCDs like the smart ones, the touchscreen ones you see. They operate as an independent control system that communicate via serial. And that communication sometimes does break down, as I found out quite a bit lately.
It sure does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, so we've got one in email I want to tackle. I've actually been going back and forth with this individual for the last couple of days to kind of get things right, but I wanted to bring it up here on the show tonight because it's important for you guys that have this type of machine. Basically, I'll just kind of give you the rundown. He bought a brand new board, the 2.2 board from Creality, to upgrade his machine because his old board, for whatever reason, has crapped out. He's got a Cr-10. Now, he's putting in a board that is for the Cr-10 and was asking me, when he does the 2.0 upgrade with a BLTouch, is he going to have to use the Cr-10 or the Cr-10 because of the board that he's using, which is the 2.2 from Creality. He is going to have to use the Cr-10 firmware for that, just because of the board. So I hope that answers for anybody that's thinking about upgrading their board in their Cr-10 to a Cr-10. I would say spend the extra money and just get the Big Tree SKR, either the Mini E3 or the E3 dip. That would be my
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say there's no reason you should buy the Mini 1.2. The E3 dip, just being able to replace your steppers, is worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah, so, and that board, I have found this out because I'm sure the question has been floating around. Yes, the E3 dip board is 100% compatible with the Cr-10 as a drop-in replacement. Now, the only thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to cut a couple of the header connectors going to the internal case fans and wire them in direct to the power supply or off the additional power port. And the other thing is your ribbon cables. Make sure before you buy that board that your 12864 screen has 3 connectors on the back of it, EXP 1, 2, and 3. Because to work with the E3 board, you need to use E3.
Yes,
EXP 3. And I've got a couple machines running right behind me here on an E3 dip Cr-10S. You will also need a Z motor splitter.
Yes, you will, because of the lack of a secondary Z.
And speaking of firmware and all those fun things too, Sean Gould saying Marlin isn't the only game in town. And you're absolutely right.
Yep.
Clipper is a fun firmware to play with, and I have played with it a bit. Now, at this point, I've upgraded almost all my printers to 32-bit boards, so the benefits to Clipper on that board versus just running it native Marlin in this case actually is quite minimal. But if you still have an 8-bit board, especially if you're running a Cr-10S with the 2.2 boards that already has the bootloader on there, and if you're already running off a Raspberry Pi, definitely look into Clipper. It produced some amazing prints when I still had the 8-bit board in there.
There you go. Jerry Campbell is saying, why is always Creality and Ender? What about other models like Adi Miab and others? Well, the main reason that we talk about Creality a lot on this show is because we both own them.
Too many.
For one, we have a lot of our viewers that have Creality products, so it really kind of takes center stage for us because those are mostly the troubleshooting things that we're going through. Now, we're not opposed to talking about other printers, we just don't have them. I mean, I could talk about the SC or the CS-10. I could talk about Wanhao. We could talk about 100 different printers, but we haven't used them and we haven't reviewed a lot of printers. We're just now getting to that stage where where companies are now starting to send us printers to review for you guys. We'll have a brand new review coming up very shortly on a brand new printer. After we've done our internal testing on it, we're going to do a video for you guys. Can't tell you what printer that is though.
And that's the thing, right? Is we're unless a company is sending us something for review, or it just so happens to be on order at Spool 3D, and the owner is very kindly asked us to film it while we build it and play around with it a little bit. Apart from that, we're just buying our own printers, and
yeah.
Controversial or not here, Creality is the best bang for your buck set of machines, at least in the FDM world right now, compared to everybody else. It's the most supported, it's the most readily available, and it's the cheapest, and it has been for a while. I would love to review a Prusa, but I am not going to drop $1,400 Canadian on an Ender 3 size build plate. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
Well, it's actually smaller than an Ender 3.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit smaller than the Ender 3. Here's a great one from Morgan Pierce. He says, don't talk about GTECH.
You know what? They don't look like a bad machine. I haven't played with one yet, but I appreciate competition. That's probably the nicest thing I can say is I appreciate competition on the market.
You and me both. I appreciate competition as well. I think the competition's healthy for everybody. Everybody will have their favorite printer. I think as time goes on, you're gonna develop that. Well, this is the greatest printer. Or that's the greatest printer. Or, X, Y, Z. In this case, Morgan's comment about GTECH for you guys out there in the audience. I'll just kind of fill you in. He brought me in his GTECH. It had a clogged head. It uses a Cyclops extruder. Or a Cyclops hot end, pardon me, and it's a dual extruder system. So it uses two extruders into one nozzle. Now, I've never been a big fan of that. I think that when you do that, you're just asking for trouble. You're asking for clogs and not the greatest performance. However, I have gotten it working. I just have to work out a couple of bed leveling issues now that I've straightened up his frame on the GTECH. This is the A10M, I believe.
Yes,
and,
yeah, it is.
It's for what it is, it's a good little printer. If it could just be tweaked a little bit, and that's what I'm trying to do. We replaced a lot of the wheels on the X gantry and also on the Z axis. We replaced all those wheels because the ones that GTECH sends are just a single bearing, and they will tend to go off kilter a little bit. If you looked at these wheels, I wish I'd brought one home. I could show you under another.
I think I saw
camera.
them. Yeah, they didn't look great.
They were just beat to heck. So, what else we got here? We got one more question. He says, if you have a unique 3D printed part in design and it can be used daily, question is, do you patent or copyright it? I'd like to sell them in Asia. Well, BT Zamat or BZ Zamat, BT Zamat, I'm sorry. What I would say there is look at copywriting and patenting, because it's your design can be copywritten and your design can be patented as well. Now, it takes quite a while to get things patented, and it can't
And a
be
lot of
like
money.
and a lot of money. So just understand that if you do an open source, it's open and it's out there for everybody to copy and everybody to make their own, whether they put their logo on it or they go ahead and tweak a little part of it to suit their needs. That would be what you could do. You could also use, there's something out there that a lot of the artists are using now that allows them to put an embedded piece of code in the STL, and somewhere in the print, it comes out in the print. And I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know there's a famous story in the engineering world about the pink rod, and there was a guy who would put these little pink rods randomly into his design, and if he went out into the field and found the machine didn't have that part, he'd say it's not authentic, right? So
Gotcha.
he got away with that for about 30 years.
Sean's saying he really loves the ability to do macros in Clipper, which I think is kind of cool too. I haven't played with it myself.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice control system. It's you're still daisy chaining back to a Raspberry Pi, so it can introduce its own set of issues. For me, it was just, well, it worked, but it was just another piece of equipment to add to the mix.
I'm going to take my microphone with me here for a second.
Yeah, go for a walk.
Yeah. Let's all go to the bathroom with Richard. No, we're not going to go to the bathroom. So we've got a letter here from Kevin Conrad. He says, greetings from Maryland, USA. Can you go over the steps a noob user should do to get started correctly? Read my book when it comes out.
Before that, close the internet. After this live stream, close the internet.
Yeah, close the internet. Only watch our show.
I was going to say, build the machine as per the instructions, whether or not you want to listen to us, and print and then correct problems. Don't correct problems that don't exist yet.
There you go. So I would probably say that, yes, we can do an A to Z sort of video. That would probably be in a series, and that series will probably come out after we launch our book, which is A Grumpy Old Guy's Guide to 3D Printing. So that's the working title right now. So if you guys are interested in that, it's probably going to be up around July or August. I got to get it finished. But in the meantime, there are some great resources out there. You can go to the Simplify 3D website if you're having problems identifying what's going wrong with your printer. They have a great resource there. It's a troubleshooting resource. I recommend that everybody goes over to simplify3d.com and just go into their troubleshooting, and it will answer 95% of your questions about 3D printing. However, going from A to Z, that's a much longer topic because everybody has different printers. So, excuse me. I had fried rice for supper. Homemade, by the way. So what I would say is I would find a video that or some documentation online that deals with your specific printer, because we can't cover every printer. It's just impossible. We don't have access to every printer. I mean, I have access to a great deal of printers, but I don't have access to every printer. And I think that I would be doing you a disservice if I took you from A to Z, and you could have a delta, and I could be talking about a Cartesian. So, but we will try to do something.
There's me talking about this thing.
There you go.
The big boy.
That thing.
Yes.
That thing.
Richard
That
doesn't
is
like me
just
talking about that
wrong.
thing.
That's
Oh, come
wrong.
on, look at it. It's beautiful.
I'm
It's
not. It's
beautiful.
over there. I'm not going to look at
It's
it. It's
beautiful.
over there. It is beautiful. It looks like crap, but it's beautiful.
Hey,
It works great.
hey, hey,
It
hey,
does.
hey, hey.
Oh, pieces of
I'd like to
extrusion
see
not
how
cut
you.
to
Hey, okay, that I can blame on you. You convinced the owner not to cut anymore. He wouldn't even cut for me, jerk. So I had to buy 500 millimeter lengths. I did the
You
best I
asked for
could
him.
with what I had.
All right. Well, we can cut them down sometime. All right. So
Nah,
let's
it's for
get
hanging
back
glasses now.
Trevor Rickard, or Richard, he says, hey, I have a quick question. I have a Cr-10S, and I think it has Z-wobble. I'm getting vertical lines on the 3D print, and I've noticed my Z-axis rod, they move quite a bit. Well, then you probably do have Z-wobble. What I would do is I would get the gantry to a point where it's not going to move, whether that be up or down, and then I would loosen off the set screws that hold the lead screws into the couplings. Don't take the couplings off. Just loosen those set screws that hold the Z rods in. Take them both out, and then reseat them again. And that is probably going to take care of most of your Z-wobble, because usually when you get Z-wobble, it's one of two things. Those spring couplers, and I hate those spring couplers, they introduce Z-wobble. Now, they're not supposed to, but they do. So what I would say to you is, if you've got those spring couplers, trash them and get a different set of couplers. You can get a solid set, which will keep that rod perfectly straight, or... Oh, where am I here? I got to make sure I'm in frame. Yeah.
No, you're in frame. You're good.
Oh,
You're just
okay.
you're just
Right.
shimmy.
Okay. So yeah, I would make sure that they're straight. Now there's two little screws that hold the T-nuts in, and what you want to make sure is that they're just turned off or turned back off of their tightest position. Turn off them about a half a turn. And that will just give them enough room for that nut to move back and forth. Now that nut is made to move back and forth. If you actually take it off, you'll see that the holes that are in there that hold it to the plate, those are actually elongated. So by having that nut float in there, you're actually going to allow that screw to go up a lot more straight, and it will take out some of that Z-wobble. Also, slow down your print if you haven't already.
Also, if it is a 10S, and this might be a bit controversial, but you may remember back, Richard, when you were playing with the Ender 3, and you performed that mod where you put the bearing at the top so that the Z rod couldn't vibrate. Now the Creality 10S has two bearings at the top, but on one side it's allowed to freely move, probably about a good inch or so. Or I should say a quarter of an inch there. But it's got a lot of playroom, and if you get that machine ripping, you'll actually hear it vibrating. You can see the rod wiggling, and that definitely doesn't help. But you got to remember, at the end of the day, all of these flexible couplers and the loosening of the screws, it's all a result of poor quality control and compensation. So at the end of the day, if you do find that I would say pull out your Z rod entirely and go roll it on a flat table and make sure it is flat. If it's warped, go and buy a new Z rod. And in my case, mine's almost able to be fully tightened up.
There you go.
And some people they go with ball screws now, or different methods. There's all. If you have a local supplier that can get you a good Z lead screw, go there and pick one up. I mean, the big one here. I'm going to keep showing this because this gets Richard so mad. That's running on dual 1 meter. Lead screws that are the exact same size as the original 10S5, and I have no vibration on that. I have no wiggling. So if that machine can do it, it's just a way to dial in. Though, remember to tighten it in. That's what got me. I forgot to tighten it in, and I just let it sit there loosely and spin around. And yet the BLTouch did best to compensate, but I was still out by a mil.
All right, so we have.
What do we got here? Got rid of direct connected couplers in favor of driving each lead screw on my printer with a small belt. and having the Acme screws riding on a bearing. I've seen that being used on a lot of new printers, and
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. I don't like belts. I prefer to direct drive everything myself. So the fewer belts I can have in my system, the better. But if it's working for you, good on you. I'm happy to hear that.
Okay, Mark Baker has an interesting question, and I just actually tackled this one this afternoon. He says, what
Oh,
causes print to shift in mid-print and then continue the print nicely till done? S3D file looked good. I'll tell you exactly what happened. It's the speed at which the machine is traveling. It is not the speed of the print, it's the speed that it travels. So
mhm.
when it's not printing, it'll move faster, and sometimes that can cause a shift in the belt or to skip a step or two on the y-axis, and it'll shift. And same thing on the x-axis, it can do the same thing, because you're usually sitting right around 3,000 millimeters per second on a travel. That should be lowered
Ooh.
down to about 1,000. Most times it's because that is too high. You
I'm
reduce your jerk down to 5 or 8, somewhere in there, and that should take care of any layer shifts, because that's exactly what it is. It's a layer shift because it moved too fast and the belt jumped.
I'm just going to go ahead and say, for any Creality machine that is not a Core XY design, you're going to want to max out any acceleration on your y-axis to about 500 mils per second, because unlike the X gantry, which has almost zero weight, the y-axis has a lot of weight to carry with that. And so on the smaller printers like the Ender, you might be able to get a bit quicker. The moment you go into glass and Cr-10S grade and everything, in fact, the big one down there runs at 350, which is, I think, a bit higher than what Creality recommends, but I don't get layer shifts. And the reason you would get a layer shift and would look continuously fine afterwards is a stepper motor is about as dumb as it can get. You tell it, you can tell it, move once, which is 1.8 degrees of rotation usually for us. And it will move that 1.8. But let's say you are starting using micro stepping with steps in between, and it's supposed to move 50% of the way through. And that bed is like a car. You know, what happens if a car is rolling forward and you're holding a bungee cord and you try to stop it, right? It's going to keep moving. And so it offsets it, but the printer doesn't have any feedback of where that position is. And that's the difference between a stepper and a servo. Is a servo will track that location and be able to correct it and always go back to the same position. Whereas a stepper just knows, hey, I sent out 18 ticks, it should be at this location. So if you go and whack it midway through, or do what I did the other morning and jam something in the print bed way, it's going to go and offset, and then it's going to continue printing right at that location because it says, hey, I'm there for all I know. So there's a new-ish thing coming out. It's been out by MakerBase for a while. It's come out from Big Tree recently, and I'm waiting for mine to play with it. It's a closed loop stepper that uses magnets and different pickups to catch and try to figure out where the position is on the stepper and turn it into a quasi-fake servo. And the technology is cheap enough. So I have one on order. I'm going to play with it. And if it's worthwhile, you might see a video pop up.
There you go. CNC Evolution. We're here now at almost the halfway point. CNC Evolution, not Revolution. Evolution says, the man on the right, does he have a YouTube channel?
I do. It's the first layer.
Yeah.
No, I don't have enough time to produce anything on my personal channel these days, so it's not even worth your time. But yeah, I'm around here all the time. I think I've self-designated myself the co-producer at this point.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think you are.
yeah, so Richard and I are one and the same, really, in this case.
He comes in and tells me what to do.
I do.
Yeah, and then I ask him, where do I submit my time card? Speaking of time cards, now that we're at the halfway point, I do want to remind you guys that we have Super Chat turned on down at the bottom. If you want to help us out to produce more content like you see tonight or on our regular Wednesday shows, please drop us a couple coins by using that Super Chat. We'd really appreciate it. And it goes into helping us do a myriad of things, upgrading our equipment at the studio. And also it goes into, right now, we're putting every a little bit that we can into our fund for going to China in October. Hopefully the flu that they've got there is all done by then.
Yeah.
If not, we won't be going, but we'll find something else to do with the money raised. But Super Chat is down there for you guys as well. We also have merch. We've got our T-shirts and our hoodies and coffee cups that you can get from our Teespring store. There's a link in the description down below. So now that I've shilled myself and said, give me your money.
Now we can tell them, where our money lately has been going, namely our studio renovation and our camera. I'm going to call it upgrade with quotes, but it is an upgrade.
We were fortunate enough, my brother, my older brother, had a camera that he was no longer using, and it's a great ENG style camera, and that's a news gathering camera. But the problem that we had was making it work with our current system, so we had to buy a couple of things. We had to get some cables and a converter and all sorts of little doodaddy things. And right
do
now,
soldering today, huzzah!
Yes, and do some soldering today. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you guys the best experience that we can and give you the best information that we can. And just you guys coming here and watching our shows is really a big help. But every time that we do a live stream or that we do put up content, if you want to, then by all means, if you can help out, we would really appreciate that as well. So what else? Oh, Sean Gould says, call it the second layer. So you can be layer number 2.
Okay, that sounds about right.
How do you fix shadow 3D prints? Paul Cumber's asking, shadow or ghosting? That is a result of 2 things, speed and jerk. If your speed, you're running it too high and your jerk is too high, you're going to continually get that ghosting. And that's where you'll see, let's say an X in a XYZ cube. That's where you're going to see it actually kind of keep going till it fades out on the side. We call that ringing, but shadow is another way, or ghosting is another way of saying it as well.
And simply put, jerk is an interesting thing because it's trying to predict what speed it has to be so that you don't overshoot, because ghosting is overshooting. And if you've ever done a PID tune on your printer and seen it out of whack where it goes up, overshoots, back and forth, and wobbles out, that's what's happening on your print at a microscopic level, and that's what you're seeing when you turn the light a specific way. Is you're actually seeing the micro vibration of it overshooting where it was supposed to be and bouncing back. And there's a whole boring theory on mechanical acceleration and stuff. But if you want a good one actually is look up Disney and their animatronics. They have all these systems in place with pressure control to ensure that there's no jerk movements and that every position they land in is natural and at the same place. And when things go wrong with their planner, things go really bad. And it's the same thing with your printer. So slow it down, keep your acceleration at a reasonable level, and keep your jerk within that 5 to 8 millimeters per second. I don't know why Creality set it to 20. There's no way.
Well, even early Marlin was set to 20.
Way. Yeah, but that was like a default for, I think, Prusa machines. And for everyone, that's why you buy a Prusa. Yes, for $1,400, you can make that thing rip. But
yeah, you can actually. Let's go to another question that came in from Kevin Conroy. He says, you got a Photon for Christmas. Congratulations.
Yay!
We'll give you that golf clap. Photon's a great machine, by the way. He wants to know if anybody has mixed resins, different colors of resin to get sort of a mixed resin look. And as far as I know, I don't know anybody that has. Brian and I both own different resin machines. I own a Wanhao Duplicator 7, and he's got the Elegoo Mars. I haven't tried it. Have you?
I have not, but I've known a couple of people who have done it. So the simple answer is you can mix colors, don't mix brands, because it's the equivalent of trying to feed 2 different types of filament into a mixing nozzle. Will they melt the same at the same temperature? Probably not even for the same reel. So what I've seen, I haven't actually used these yet. I know Squill 3D has them, is you can get a white or a transparent filament and then add dyes to it. I've also seen people use food dye. Now, do I recommend that? Absolutely not, because you could dye your FEP film and whatever. But if you've got disposable vats, I mean, you can make whatever color you want with different dyes. And food coloring, well, all you're doing is adding an impurity to the resin. So take that with a grain of salt. But don't be doing things like mixing a dental resin with an ABS-like resin or a water washable with another. It's never going to blend properly. I'm trying to remember exactly what they used to call those agents that you add into, for instance, Starbucks has this xanthan gum they add to their drinks that allows the milk to bind to water. The same sort of thing would happen with resins. There's no guarantee they're going to mix properly, and you don't want to end up gambling out with a polka dot print. Maybe you do. I don't know. Give that a try.
You may want to do that. I see a little hand behind
mixing
you
colors,
that's waving.
Yeah. Hello, little hand. Oh, she's just snickering now at me.
Raymond Emsley says he sees her back there. And Raymond Emsley can't even see right now because he went to the eye doctor. Had some work done.
Yes. There is a portrait on the wall of her behind my head, but that's not her standing there. She's actually, she's on the other side of my rather expensive chair.
Yes, I don't have that luxury. I have
our buddy James Lane here is asking, after upgrading to Marlin 2.0.1, G29 only probes a really small area of the bed. Why? Well, that's kind of a bit of a long-winded. There's a bit of a long-winded answer to it, but they changed where they stored the bed insets on Marlin 2.0.1. And you may want to take a look at your settings, because I think the default value is something like 50 millimeters or something inwards. And if you change that, it changes it right across the bed. But if you go into Config Advanced, there's a section where you can actually define those limits for every single direction. So for my BLTouch, I've been able to take it out to the bed, or to the limits of my y-axis, or sorry, my x-axis. But on my Y, I have it trimmed in to deal with my binder clips.
There you go. I want to take the last question that we've got in our questions at thefirstlayer.com. If you have questions, every Wednesday you can start submitting them for our Saturday show, just so you guys know. We're going to get a little thing down at the bottom here, so we'll, at some point in time, I haven't made one yet. But Bill McDonald, who is alteracious in our chat room this evening, he's got a problem, and I wish I could show you guys a picture, but I can't. And what he's asking is, what he's getting here is he's asking, could this be coasting under extrusion or clogged nozzle? It does look like he's got under extrusion, and it does look like this appears to be a clogged nozzle, but I know from experience, alteracious, you have an Ender 3, do you not? I'm pretty sure that you do. So what I'm going to tell you is going wrong here is your filament is dragging on the inside of the extruder. As it's coming into the extruder, it's actually worn a little groove, and it's dragging in that groove. That's exactly what it looks like to me. That's the biggest problem with Creality products, is that plastic extruder. It doesn't last very long. Replace it as soon as you can with a metal one. They're only $25. They're not that expensive from Spool 3D. But alteracious is always in it. I believe that's going to be your problem. We've got a couple other ones going on here. Kevin Conrad says, join the GTECH groups on Facebook if you're having problems with the GTECH, because Omega X9400 says, I picked up a GTECH A10M recently and was wondering what to start with for dialing in a decent cure profile for it. I actually was doing this today. The funny thing is, you have to build your own version of a profile, but once you've done that, you're in the clear. Now, I looked at 3 videos, and I can't remember the fellow's name, but if you just go on to YouTube and search for Cura GTECH A10M profile, you'll get some really good examples, and I've been trying one today, and it was working out quite well for me. There's a 3-part series on doing a dual print.
Yeah, those are always a lot of fun to work with.
Yes, by all means, give us a thumbs up. Hey, there's Jerry, the 3D printing and painting guy from
Yeah, I was
Las
going to give a
Vegas.
shout out to Jerry. Hope you're all doing well down there after
Yeah,
all
Jerry
your
was just
fun
recently
times
in the
lately.
hospital, and he's been with us since day one, since we got started on this channel. He's been with us, so I hope you're doing well, Jerry. And if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I'm
Michael
trying to find
Musgrove is asking, will you please at some time tell about the G-code generator 2.0 for Cura 3.6? There is a video that talks about it. I find it hard to follow. Thank you. First of all, Cura 3.6, dump that turkey and go and get yourself 4.4.1. It works a lot better. Now, as far as the G-code generator for Cura, I'm not sure. You could run your G-code and then just look at it in...
Oh, I see. Okay. This is a specific website.
Oh, okay.
It's designed for the multi-material Y joiner. So I'll,
Gotcha.
let me see if I can kind of get this briefly over on my screen. I don't know if I can take the lead on that there. Whoa, there's a multi-Richard.
You had more than one of me?
Yeah, well, no, that's what happens when I tab over and I can show you like that. See?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyways, this website looks like it offers different for your start and end G code, extruder 1, 2. I haven't played with multi-materials, so I can't speak on that actually. I'm just trying to find all my windows here. This is what happens when you get disorganized. There we go.
Do you want me to give you a full window? I can give you a full window.
No, I'm good. I was just looking at that briefly. It looks like you
Okay.
just give it a bunch of parameters at the top for a number of extruders, how big you want your waste blocks to be. I've never worked with any of these multi-material joiners, unfortunately, and it's because they're not suitable to the kind of 3D printing I do. Let's put it that way. But
all right. So next
we'll
one.
keep that in mind.
Yeah, James Lane. So I should search for bed inset.
Yeah, we were just.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, we were talking in chat there about the bed insets. So we're. I'm trying to remember where the setting is. Unfortunately, this is not my computer that I generate G code on or generate source code on, so it's buried a little bit.
All right, going back to Alteracious problem that he was having here. He says, yes, it's an Ender 3 coasting is not on. Already has the metal extruder. So then you probably have a clog in your hot end somewhere because what it'll do is it'll just drag a little bit of material on your outside, on the outside layer because it can't fill it in. It doesn't have enough back pressure to push it through. Jesse Foreman, you can actually turn brittle resin into gray resin by mixing it with Tech Blue. You can also vary flexibility by mixing more or less of tenacious. Well, okay, that's something interesting to try.
I've never heard of this resin. It's a private company that brags about how great it is, and that's awesome.
I would love to
it
get
is
my
not
hands on
available in
some.
Canada, as far as I know.
Is it because of the WMIS?
Amazon.com does not ship to Canada. Yeah, I don't think it's available up here. Honestly, Canada, we're kind of limited on what resins we have up here.
Yeah.
Currently, if I want to bring it in on Amazon.ca, which is through Urban Inspirations, who sells the U.S. stuff, they want $103 for a kilogram of it. So that's going to be a no for me.
All right, so Nigel C. I fitted a genuine Bondtech extruder to my CR10. It's a new machine now. Fantastic prints. It's my go-to printer above my Prusa Mark III S. Well, that's a heck of a statement right there.
Yeah, I did enjoy my Bondtech. I think my issues were I didn't assemble the hot end properly, but when that thing clogs, oh, does it clog bad, that Bondtech. Basically, the CR10S configuration has it flipped backwards, and so where you're feeding in filament is normally where it would mount to an E3D V6 hot end. So the other side, that's now the outlet, basically is sealed within the unit. And so what happened was if I had a clog in my hot end, the filament would go in, and its only path was to actually curl itself up in behind the Bowden connector. So yeah, I almost threw it out the door. I've actually got it sitting in a baggie somewhere around here, and I've just never reinstalled it.
Mine works great on my machine. I've got it on my CR10S, and it works great.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I
I've
haven't had a
gone for the
problem with
dual
it.
gear route, and I've been quite happy with that so far.
Um, Paul Cumber is saying that he runs his 3D printer at 50 speed. Maybe take that down about 5 millimeters per second. Go to 45. See how that changes things for you. Also, I'll bet you it has something to do with your jerk settings as well.
Yeah,
Brian,
I would
could
say
you
more
bring
so
up my
jerk.
photo? Actually, Brian can't bring up your photo because I haven't sent it to him. We were
Ah,
very limited in time. I didn't get out of the shop till almost 20 after 5. By the time I got home, it
oh,
was 10 after 6. By the time I got down here, it was 20 to 7. So,
I
yeah.
was laying in bed until like 5 minutes before this episode. If you can't tell from the bags, I am beat. It was a long week here in Calgary, and the weather change, it changed. Oh, I need to do the math on that because for a lot of you American fans, it's a crazy number how big it
Yeah.
changed here.
Marcus is asking beginner 3D printer under 500 US in 2020, Ender 3 Pro hands down.
Yes, as long as you're okay with that build size. You know what? I'm just going to go out and say it. FDM, Ender 3 Pro.
Yep.
Resin, Elegoo Mars. Big format, gray market printers, shall we say.
Um,
I,
if
I
I were
think,
going
yeah.
If I were going to go for a big format printer, something that was in that 450 to 500 range, I think right now I would build my own.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because right now I've noticed that Creality and Wanhao both, once you get out of that 300 by 300 build plate, their warming size or their bed heated size is still only 300 by 300, both on the 400 and the 500 for both Wanhao and Creality. So I would be inclined myself, unless you want to drop a big chunk of coin, there's also the G2 or what is it? Mark Baker has one that has a much bigger build plate and can, I can't remember the name of it. But
It's a shame that they, as soon as you go over 300 by 300 by 400, and even getting to that is quite expensive. I don't
yeah,
really understand that. To be honest with you guys, when they announced the CR10 V2, I expected that thing to be like a US $400 printer because the Ender 3 is, such a budget machine. You can still, to this day, buy 2 Enders for the price of one CR10.
yeah, that's true. You can, and still have money left over.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a bit of a letdown. I got a hold locally of a CR10S5 used for about $400 in Canadian in absolute despicable condition, and I blew another 200-300 on it. But these new machines, they're just coming in at such a ridiculous price point.
Yeah,
I don't understand what they're targeting. And at the end of the day, I think you'd be best to stick with, tried and true Ender, learn to slice up big models into smaller parts because it's great being able to print a nice big part on one giant machine. However, when you cut it up, you also reduce your failure rate. And when you're 10 days into a print and you have to throw away a kilo of filament because you breathed the wrong way on the machine, it's not as fun. So just bear that in mind. I mean, we spoke about Luban briefly when it came out there, and I think it's pretty darn expensive to buy a lifetime license right off the bat. But if you factor that into the price of your Ender 3, you're still going to be way ahead versus buying
yeah,
a larger format machine.
that's true. And most things today can be built on a smaller format machine. You're just going to end up putting them together like a model kit. So that, I mean, if you don't mind doing the extra work, it's a great printer to get under. In the States, it's under 300, I believe.
Oh yeah, it's really low price. And you know what? As much as I love building printers, have one stock machine that you just know works in the corner. Because when you have to print parts and you realize all your part printing printers are in pieces, say that a few times,
Yeah.
it can be quite stressful when you have to call up your buddy and say, yeah, I need to use your printer.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a couple of comments here. Uh, where was I? I forgot. Okay, no, Michael Musgrove again. He says, it looks like Prusa is using something like the Y joiner to use 4 extruders in one. I haven't seen that yet. I do have one of their multi-extruder setups for the Mark III S in the shop, which I will be putting together fairly soon, so I can't really comment on that yet. Formbot T-Rex 2 Plus 400 by 400 by 700, and that is a fully heated bed on that Formbot. Now that Formbot is some big money. The T-Rex, when you start getting into the Formbots of the world, and you start getting into some of these bigger printers like Ray's, and even Ray's
Tech, I
doesn't.
think.
Yeah, you're starting to get into a higher dollar value, and it all depends where your money is, right? So, Marcus, thoughts on the Prusa Mini? I haven't seen the Prusa Mini live yet. Some people have that are my customers and viewers of this show locally that said they are getting one. They'll probably bring it in for me to have a look at. If they do that, I'll give you my opinion on that.
Though, didn't he delay it because there was some kind of manufacturing issue? I remember hearing about that recently.
Yeah, there was a little bit of one. I can't remember what it was either.
And that's the one good thing with Joseph is he's not going to release something to the public if he doesn't think it's ready. You know,
That's right. He doesn't
kind of
use
an
us
Elon
as
Musk,
testing
you know?
beds. Yeah, he doesn't
So,
use us
you
like a
know,
testing bed.
I appreciate him for that. It's just that to get his product into Canada is prohibitively expensive.
Yes.
And you know, it's the old rule. You could go down to the hardware store and buy some nails there. Or you could wait 2 weeks and order 10 packs of the same thing from China and take the risk and hope that one out of those 10 packs works properly. And that's kind of what it is with the Enders, is that we have a better likelihood of getting 10 good, or, well, in this case, what would be 5? Almost 5 Enders. Think about that. 5 Enders versus 1. That's a tough
print
cookie to
farm.
swallow.
Yeah, that's a print farm. Yeah. At the end of the day, and I like this comment from Nige, Nige C. I hope I said that right. I probably butchered that, but at the end of the day, stick with what you have, tweak and stop. And I agree with that 100%. This is one of the things I preach a lot about. It is, and I will say it because I do preach it. Don't upgrade your printers until you've had a chance to use them, get to know what they're capable of doing. Then start thinking about the upgrades. Too often, too many people go, well, I bought this printer and then I went and bought all this stuff because I read it on the internet because everybody was saying it was the hottest, the best. And at the end of the day, it didn't work. So here's what I say.
Olsen Ruby.
Yeah, Olsen Ruby. Here's what I say to you is, go and buy a printer, play with that printer, tweak that printer, get it working for you, then make the upgrades if you want to go to different materials and things like that. That's what I would recommend to anybody. Our Hobby Howie says, artillery Sidewinder X1, just like CR10, just like the Creality Cr-10 build size. And we took a lot of flack for this in our top 5, and I want to address some of that flack now.
Yeah,
While we're sitting here, let's just talk about that. We took a lot of flack over our top 5, and people were saying, well, why wasn't the Prusa on there? Why wasn't the artillery on there? Why were X, Y, and Z printers on there? And as I said at the beginning of that particular episode on our top 5, it's because these are the printers that we reviewed in 2019. Now, why was the list for 2020? Well, if you're going into 2020 and you're looking for a new printer, all of those printers are still available on the market today. So yes, they came out in 2018, 2019. Some of them even came out earlier than that, but at the end of the day, we're in 2020, and if you're looking for a brand new printer and you're just getting started in 3D printing, those for us were the best ones that we could recommend for you, depending on what your needs were, whether it be resin or something else, or FDM.
And bear in mind with the artillery, only a few vendors in Canada are even carrying it. And
Yeah.
right now, I'm seeing the baseline model at Canadian 532 on their AliExpress store. And you know what? That's so close to the Creality price, and the Creality's been out longer. It's just too big of a price point for us to jump on it. And there are a lot of design things that I don't like about it. But I'm not going to put out a video if I don't have one in my hands.
Yeah.
And
That's just
the
it.
fact is, we're just not going to we're not going to be bringing them in.
If
Big
somebody wanted to
format.
send me one, and I would be happy to do a review on it.
Let's put it this way: with how the market is out here, we could open up a new company called the Ender 3 store,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that thing sells out everywhere. As quick as they come in, they go.
Absolutely.
I
They do.
can't I
Yeah.
can't say that about any printer of any larger size.
There you go. Nigel is saying, or let's go back to this one question here. I have one of the first 500 Enders. This is from Jesse Foreman. And his is an Ender 3. He says, mine came in with no issues. He's had the TH3D board on it, and it's still running strong. Congratulations to you. I think that's awesome.
That's great.
Alterations, what glue do you recommend for assembling multi-piece prints? First and foremost, I would recommend CA. 3D Gloop is another one that you can use if you're using PLA. They also have a brand, a 3D Gloop for ABS, and I think they have one now for PETG. We're experimenting with a glue at the shop right now to see how well it holds up, and if it does what I think it's going to do, this is something that I'll recommend to you, and I'll tell you what that is in an upcoming episode.
And you know
Uh,
what? Try different things. I mean, super glues do work great at times. I've actually done a very little bit of experimentation on using some UV resin from my resin printer as a seam filler with a UV pen to cure it, and the results are very intriguing. So um, it's not really catered for this channel, that sort of stuff, but if I end up bringing it up in a video, you'll see how it works there. But yeah, I've used it to glue together foam, and it binds right
there you go.
together. And because it's such a liquid, it cures so quick. It's nice and easy to work with. But you have to introduce all the resin safety things. So if you're in a bind, maybe think about it.
So there was one other thing that I wanted to go into. Kevin Conrad said, if you bought a new silicone bed heater, do you have to attach it to the aluminum plate? Yes. You have to attach it to some sort of under or structure for it to work properly. Usually what a lot of people will do is they will cut off the wiring to their existing bed, and they will just adhere it to the bottom of the existing heat bed. I don't typically recommend that. I recommend that you go out and get yourself a proper machined bed for that. And then there should be one side should be sticky. It should have like a paper that you rip off and you stick it right to the bottom.
Yeah, the adhesive it comes with should be sufficient to manage the temperatures that it's designed for. That being said, you probably shouldn't be taking it to 100, 200 plus degrees there. But if you want to, you could always consider sandwiching something in between there too. I haven't tried it myself. The one that I want to get, the Kinovo, is over $300 Canadian for the
Yeah,
size I need. So I'm
they're not cheap.
very hesitant, and that it almost requires a breaker of its own. So I have been patient and letting here's what I've been doing for my slow heated bed is I hit the preheat PLA, and then I go upstairs and I slice my model, which takes 15 years thanks to tree supports. By the time I save it on the SD and go downstairs, it's ready to go.
There you go. Let's see here. Alteration saying he uses CA glue, typically used on RC tires. He said it works well. Marcus, you do have a point. He says I think Loctite has a specific glue now for 3D printed parts. They do, and I haven't got my hands on it yet. Mohan, what are some of the best upgrades I can do for my Ender 3? What do you recommend? First of all, I recommend that you don't do any upgrades. If this is a new printer for you, and I said this earlier in the show tonight, just use the printer. Play with it, tweak it as you need to, and then if you need to know what upgrades I would do, first and foremost, I would upgrade the hot end, and perfectly, to be perfectly honest, I would go with a all metal from Micro Swiss. They're a direct bolt-on replacement. They're easy to install. And the second thing I would do is upgrade the extruder from the plastic one that's on there to a machined aluminum one. Those are the two upgrades that I would make and that I would recommend to anybody right out of the gate.
Absolutely. No, the Ender 3 should work fine out of the box for you. I do know that the plastic extruder arm is probably one of the first items to fail on that, so I would go ahead and order one. That doesn't mean you have to replace it day one, though. I ran perfectly fine for a while. It's just it started binding a groove right through the arm, and a lot of people report cracks in that arm. And when you get cracks, the tension against the filament is reduced, and therefore you can get slipping and under extrusion. So the moment you start noticing problems, that's the first thing I would target. And then while that's on order, give your nozzle a good cleaning anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Alteracious, well, thank you very much. We got $1.99 from D Floyd 888.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate that.
We love to bring information to you guys. So
yeah, that's what we're here for. We decided this year that that's what this, typically on a Saturday night, is going to be. It's going to be ask your questions so that we can answer them to the best of our ability. If we don't know an answer, send us an email if you haven't already, and we will jump right in and try and find you an answer for an upcoming show. I've used standard super glue. Alteracious says, yeah, it works great. Two-part epoxies work great as well. I like the Gorilla Glue he's mentioning here. No bubbles or expansion, and two-part epoxy was hard to do with post-processing. Gorilla was a charm, he says. Trevor Rickard, I have one more question for it. Is it possible for me to print with PETG on a Cr-10 without an all-metal hot end? Yes, it is, but not very well. The problem is when you're using that Creality hot end, that Bowden tube goes down into the heat block. So it actually meets up with the nozzle itself. So the problem is when you start getting above 235, 240, 245 in that range, that Teflon tube starts to break down. Now, if you've changed that Teflon tube to something like Capricorn, it's not going to break down as fast, but it will still break down over time, and it will clog your nozzle. That's why I always say that if you're going to go to other materials other than PLA on any Creality product, really think about investing in an all-metal hot end, especially the Micro Swiss.
Yeah, absolutely. I do know a lot of people who do print PETG, and I haven't had much success, but some people have. 235, 240. If you're going real slow, you can achieve that, but it does generally like to be in that 250 range if you really want it to be clean. And there are concerns with the tubing with off-gassing beginning at 250, even Capricorn. If you can just here's your secret trick of the day, okay? Because we always say buy a Micro Swiss, buy a Micro Swiss.
Yeah.
If you can't afford a Micro Swiss, just get yourself the all-metal heat break, because your block is still good, your heat sink is still good. It just goes and moves the Bowden tube right up and makes it all metal all the way through. And that throat can go for as low as $30, $35. So you can put that on your stock extruder. It's just, we recommend changing out most of the hot end parts because they're not great quality to begin with, and it can be tough to diagnose exactly what has failed in there. So
this is going to be our last question for the night, and sorry to cut you off there, Brian, but we're running over. Can you believe it? We're running over.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting run over.
Robert Marvin says, can anyone tell me what the sheets that came with my Cr-10 between the glass and the bed are used for? Those are actually tape.
They're used for keeping your cat off the shelves.
They're masking tape. That's what they are. They're made to... They're supposed to be put onto your glass as a bed adhesion. Throw that crap in the garbage. Get yourself a purple glue stick and just put glue stick down.
Yeah, now, I mean, if you're stuck in a situation, and I say this because I have been stuck in that situation. Let's say your bed heater has failed or something, and you need to run your printer. Although it will create a very bumpy bottom texture, that tape will allow you to print PLA without any heated bed. Now, the reason when I first got into 3D printing with my Monoprice Mini, everyone said you use blue painter's tape or green painter's tape, and it works great. And it is true, it does work great, except you have to replace it every print or every couple of prints. It
Yeah.
just goes to trash quick. So if you're stuck in a bind, use it on your bed. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's not exactly good masking tape it came with either. So
No.
if you need some tape around the house, you'd be better to chop it up into some strips and use it to hold down a box or something on the way to the dump.
So there you go. There's our ask for help for Friday night. Next week, we're back on Saturday. We've got a brand new episode coming to you on Wednesday. So make sure you guys check out the feed for that. And we're not sure what we're going to give you this week. Maybe we'll give you something interesting. Well, everything's probably interesting.
Everything's interesting. We'll give you guys a good video.
There you go.
Hopefully the weather stays stable and we don't get sicker than sin again.
Yes, please, no. I had a cold for almost 3 weeks. Started New Year's Eve, and it lasted right up until last week. And then, of course, my migraines didn't help either.
So I did the numbers for you guys today. We had a 80-degree Fahrenheit differential across 24 hours here. So take that into perspective. It went from minus 40 Fahrenheit to around 40 to 45. It was rough, and I'm still suffering from it. Jess is still suffering from it. Richard's suffering from it, because that is hard pressure changes. Let's put it that way. So
yeah. So with that said, guys, we hope that you have a wonderful weekend this weekend. Tomorrow, I am teaching a class, an introduction to 3D printing at Spool 3D. My class is full; it's sold out, and also my next Build and Learn is sold out in February. So that one sold out really fast. I don't know why. Maybe people just want Ender 3s.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. So thanks again to all of you for coming and joining us on a Friday night, and we will see you guys again on Wednesday. And like I always say, like, subscribe, put a comment down in that comment section below. Tell us what you liked about tonight's live stream, what you didn't like about tonight's live stream. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever you choose, and we will see you next time. Don't forget that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. See you, Brian.
See you, Richard. We're going to keep waving till he disconnects.